Hello there, Sagittarius. Thank you so much for stopping by for your tarot insights. This is really fluid in the timing for this. I've seen what I'm looking at last anywhere from 20 minutes up to years, depending on how quickly you embrace or how much you fight with the lesson or experience that this talks about. So there's not really a set time frame on this, although it should be appropriate right about now. And this is December the 2nd. I will have this uploaded today, and it could be appropriate for a long time or just for a few days for some of you. So anyway, what I'm looking at is one particular life cycle, and a life cycle just sets us up to learn something or experience something. And we always have several life cycles running at the same time. Generally, they'll overlap a little bit here and there. And everything that I look at first is going to be the setup for the lesson or the experience. And so you should recognize all of that stuff. That should be current time frame for most of you. And then I've got, I'll look at the lesson or experience of the life cycle. And that may or may not be happening now. And, you know, it may be something that's in the future, or it may be something you're already starting to experience. And then we'll look at fulfillment of the life cycle or the end of the life cycle, which is what happens as you integrate that lesson or experience into your life. And then what happens after that is you just graduate onto the next life cycle where you learn the next or experience the next thing. So, having explained all of that, let's start looking at the setup. And now reminder, the setup is all current situation stuff. So you should recognize what I'm seeing. The first thing that I'm looking at does talk to me about your environment. And environment is usually home, but I have seen it come up as work or school. It can be any place where you have energy or effort invested. And so what I'm seeing is that you have a pretty happy environment. It seems like there's a lot of fulfillment and a lot of satisfaction going on in that environment. So that's a nice encouraging thing to see. And then the next card that you have does talk to me about your subconscious leanings. And what we have here is that there's been something that has been really depleting you lately. And I feel like for a lot of you, this has been depleting you for a long while. And you're just really looking at a subconscious level, how do I move away from this situation where I'm feeling depleted and move on to something that works better for me? And a situation that's depleting can be a relationship. You can have a friend that's a psychic vampire that's just pulling all your energy away, or you can have a situation where you're pouring a lot of energy into it, but there's not a lot of payoff for all the energy that you're investing in it. Or it could be that you have a thought process that has really not been serving you, but it's just something that has not really been serving you, has been holding you back, in fact, and really kind of sucking some of your good energy away without replenishing it. So whatever it is, at a subconscious level, you are working on walking away from that, just letting it go, cutting your losses and letting go of that. Now, looking at learning style and also communication style. I feel like you're very careful who you get your information from. Whenever you are picking up information from other people, you're making sure that they are qualified to give you the information that they are giving you. In other words, if you have somebody that is talking to you about taxes and what you should or shouldn't be doing about taxes for your business or even for your personal life, you're making sure that if you're listening to that advice, that's somebody that's qualified. They know what they're really talking about. You know, and I feel like that applies in any situation in your life, that whatever information comes in, you want to make sure that you're getting the real deal, and you want to make sure the person that's giving you information is actually qualified to give information on this topic. And then let's see, so careful about where you're getting your information from as far as learning style. And then for communication, I think that right now you're kind of holding a communication back. I feel like you may even be holding judgment back, and that's why you're holding communication back. Like you don't want to say much until you see how things really pan out. That's kind of what I'm picking up here as far as communication style when it comes to this particular life cycle. Then let's see. All right, so we're looking next at your work, and first we're going to look at work as far as what you do every day that makes you feel satisfied, or how you earn an income, whichever way that works for you. Ba-bum-bum-bum-bum. Okay, so first of all, the first thing that's popping up is I am seeing that you're working directly with people, that you've got a lot of people that you're interacting with, whether it's clients or whether it's people that you're working with in the office. I'm seeing that for a lot of you Sagittarians, that this is not some kind of Lone Ranger type job that you have. And even if you're working from home, still you're interacting with a lot of people, because I definitely have people showing up here. Now, the other thing that I can tell you about your work is that where you may have been focused before on different directions or different projects, I think that things are starting to focus in. There's starting to be some things that are taking more of your time and effort than others. Oh, and just by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but I expect to be 85% right on my readings, even in my generals. So if I'm going along talking about this stuff and you're like, whoa, I don't know what she's talking about for like half of it, or anything less than 85%, then you want to basically figure that this reading is probably not intended for you, because it's a general reading. It's not going to be exactly spot on for every single Sagittarian. So if I'm only hitting less than 85% of the time, I would say this reading probably isn't for you. You might want to check your rising or your moon sign, but I don't do these on a real regular basis. It's not like I'm putting all of those out at once. So if it's not for you, it's just not for you. But if it is, then cool. Yay. And I think that this will help the majority of you Sagittarians, actually. So anyway, let's go back to work. So we've talked about the work where you make a living, or the things that you do to satisfy yourself every day. But let's talk about that inner work, those things that we always do to improve our own personalities. What do I see here? Looks to me like there's something about your personality right now that you are seeing as good, but as in the beginning phases of good, that there's much more expansion and growth that could go on with that. And so it's a positive part of your personality, and you're just working on expanding that or growing that. And I do feel like, it has to do with emotions and how you feel about things. And so you are working with expanding something about how you feel about things in general. Okay, so that's talking about inner work. We talked about outer work. Now let's look at that part of your personality which is being grown or expanded as you go through this particular life cycle. Basically, what I've got coming in is that you are learning how to do things in a cyclical way, or not that you're necessarily learning this, but that you're expanding how to do things in a cyclical way. So you're doing things that are repeating. Maybe you're doing the same thing but with different people every time. Maybe you're teaching the same class but you have different students under you each time you teach that class. Or maybe you're doing the same type of thing and you're doing it with the same people, so that the experience is just getting deeper and deeper every time you repeat. But there's definitely something here about working with cycles and understanding how to work well with cycles is that part of your personality that's being grown or expanded here. Now the next thing that I'm looking at talks to me about those things that you stand for. And you, it looks to me like you have been wanting to put down some responsibilities, and I think you actually have put these responsibilities down, or at least some of them, and you have people that are trying to guilt you into picking them back up, or trying to make you feel bad in some way for putting these down. And so you're just standing up for the fact that, hey, everybody needs a break sometime, Step off the curb, Jack. I'm taking my break. All right, so how other people perceive you. Okay, so the first thing that I'm hearing is that other people perceive you as someone who is young at heart, which is not to be misconstrued or thought of as childish. Young at heart is like childlike. There's like a certain amount of innocence. There's a certain amount of expectation of good. There's a certain amount of trust. Childish is more, when I say childish, that's more like throwing tantrums, immature, not acting like is appropriate for somebody who's had as much life as someone has. But this is not that. This is childlike. And so we have that innocence, we have that trust there. So other people are seeing you as somebody who is very childlike, somebody who's very open with their emotions, and who really, they see you as somebody who really enjoys life and makes a point to enjoy life. So everything that we've got so far is all the setup for the lesson or the experience. Everything that we've looked at is stuff that you should be recognizing in your life right now. If I have not hit on at least 85% of this, then probably the rest of the video is not going to be so much for you. The rest of the video is going to be talking about stuff that you may be doing now, but it also may be stuff that's coming up in the future. So if you related to the first part of this video and it all made sense to you, and 85% or more was right, I would say probably the rest of the video is going to be applicable for you as well. Like I said, if you didn't, then I wouldn't expect the rest of this video to be applicable. So you can turn it off if you want. No biggie, it won't hurt you. You won't miss anything. All right, so lesson or experience that we have coming up here. What is this? What are you learning, Sagittarius? There's something coming up here about building security and building, I think it has to do with finances or material goods, that, you're building security, but I think you're also realizing that there's a fine balance when you're building security and what needs to be focused on so that you can be happy. If you focus on just the material stuff, then you have all that material stuff and it's fine, but maybe you haven't had enough time to focus on the relationships that you had, and so now you don't have anybody to share the material stuff with, which kind of takes some of the fun of having it away. And so I think you're learning how to find that balance of focusing on making sure everything is cool financially and things are good in that way or in any other material way, but also focusing on relationships and making sure that things are good in that area of your life as well. Now, fulfillment of the life cycle, what we have coming up is we have I'm seeing this actually a lot. I think this might have been the last 2 or 3 videos, but definitely I've seen it in 2 videos recently. One of the things that's coming up is you're being called to be the peacemaker. Now, this can come in one of 2 ways. This can be you being the middle person between some other people and helping them to understand each other. But considering what we're seeing your lesson or experience to be, I would say it's much more likely that what's happening is you're making peace with people that maybe you used to talk to them more and you've kind of fallen out of touch with them. So this may be you going to them and saying, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but can we go out to lunch sometime next week or whatever, something like that. So, sort of bringing peace back into that relationship, breathing life back into that relationship. And I think it's multiples. I think it's multiple relationships. And I'm not just talking about like romantic relationships either. So multiple relationships, just breathing new life back into them. And then the next card that I have also talks about, really it sort of reiterates that about, you really putting some effort out towards enhancing relationships that you have. Now, the other way that I'm seeing this too is you may also be spending some money as part of that. So maybe you're offering to pay for dinner, or maybe you're giving some gifts or taking people on a trip or whatever. But anyway, at whatever degree where this is getting back together and rebonding, I think that you are going to be putting out definitely some effort and possibly some money in the process. And then the last card, once again, just talks about, spending some time really alone and having that time to think about things, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you trigger. I really think this ties in quite well with our lesson here, because once you've had that time alone, then you're ready to be social, you're ready to be around people. This to me kind of implies that having that time alone to evaluate, okay, great, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, I've achieved the other, but where are the people to share it with? And then reaching out to the people. So I think really that's what's going on here with this lesson or experience. And so, like I said, the end of this life cycle, you guys may not recognize so much because it may not be happening yet. But if it hasn't happened yet, that's okay. It probably is. If the first part of this resonated for you, then the last part is probably going to happen too. So anyway, that is your life cycle and your tarot insights for right now. Everybody have a fantastic day, and I'll see you back on the next video. Peace out.